What is the greatest day of your life? You hear people use this saying all the time. Most people might say something like the day their first child was born, or their wedding day, or a day that they got a big promotion. But I say the best day of my life was November 11, 2011, the release of the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. Alright, now obviously I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but I'm not gonna lie, Skyrim's release was definitely one of the best days of my life. And with the recent news that just came out about Elder Scrolls 6 being a more traditional game like Skyrim and Oblivion, according to Todd Howard, I thought there was no better time than to release this video. Now, just a fair warning because this video is about to hit levels of glaze not observed very often, because this day was one of the absolute pinnacles of my 14-year-old virgin life at the time and was truly the beginning of a generational run in history. Skyrim to me has become like a second home. I've heard a saying once that goes something like, I feel homesick for a place that I could never actually go to. I don't remember who said that or what they were referring to, but to this day I remember hearing it and instantly thinking of Skyrim. Thinking about the first steps I took into the open world, my first time reaching Riverwood after the prologue, or hearing, the beautiful soundtrack and breathtaking ambiance with tracks like Streets of Whiterun or Kind's Peace. Real gamers know exactly what I'm talking about. Now, this video is not a review for Skyrim. Obviously, there's like hundreds or thousands of those videos, and this game is like 15 fucking years old. So that's not what this video is meant to be. This video is simply a love letter to my favorite game. Because I feel like for some weird reason, especially in recent years, there seems to be some crazy revisionist history going on, where people suddenly started to pretend that Skyrim wasn't actually that good, and that it was all nostalgia, and that insert clearly inferior game was better. And instead of diving into every ounce of lore or discussing the game and RPG mechanics in depth, I'd rather just talk about how this game made me feel. Because at its core, Skyrim is more than a game to me. It's a second home, it's a feeling, and it's simply the greatest of all time. Now, like I said before, the release of Skyrim was monumental. The entire gaming community had been waiting for that day since the first Skyrim trailer released in December of 2010. This trailer literally had the world by the balls and was an absolute masterclass in video game marketing. We got the soundtrack, we got a glimpse of the dragon combat, and of course, the introduction to the Dragonborn. So for me and most of the people I knew, the hype was literally immeasurable and the expectations on Skyrim were of biblical proportions. It had almost seemed impossible that this game was going to live up to the hype, especially with the last game Bethesda having released in the Elder Scrolls series being Oblivion. Skyrim had massive shoes to fill. I have to admit that even I at the time was nervous that the game would not land, but once I got my hands on it, I loaded it up in my Xbox 360, and then I heard the most iconic first lines in gaming history blessing my ears.
Hey, you're finally awake.
I can't lie, man, I will never get tired of hearing that, but at the time we didn't realize the gravity of this dialogue, but it was immense and it would become meme royalty when all is said and done. And quick disclaimer here, I would love to include more dialogue and music in this video, but I'm not super familiar with how YouTube copyright works, so I'm kind of just choosing not to risk it, and I'm just going to have minimal music and dialogue, so you're going to have to deal with my voice mostly for the rest of this video. Anyway, following this opening scene, you're introduced to the character creator, which was great for its day. You have all the usual races of Tamriel and a ton of options for making your character look the way you wanted. Now, I'm not going to say it's up to the standards of today, but for back then, it was great. You were also introduced to some of the key figures in the story, in Ulfric Stormcloak, General Tullius, and the big bad world eater himself, the dragon Alduin. After this, you're thrust into the ensuing chaos of the prologue and introduced to your first real choice in this legendary RPG, either to leave Helgen with the Imperial Hadvar or the Stormcloak Nord Ralof. Now obviously, this choice has little effect on the game, as choice and consequence is not really a huge focus in Skyrim as it was in games like Oblivion, but it does give you that first look into the political landscape and division between the factions of Skyrim. And I always thought that this was just such a great introductory hook into the world of Skyrim because it was just all gas, no brakes right from the get-go. You make your choice and it's releasing you into the world. And although, like I said, this choice really isn't all that important in terms of a narrative perspective, this choice is where most of us boys became men and made the decision that would decide our Tamriel political and ideological allegiances forever. Submit to the Empire. Finally, we're released into the open world of the glorious region of Skyrim, where our gaming tastes, political ideologies, and brain chemistry would change forever. The beautiful thing about Skyrim to me was that at this point it truly left you to your own devices and you essentially had the world at your fingertips. Bethesda has always been great at that walkout moment, for example in games like Fallout 3 or Oblivion, and Skyrim was no different. You're instantly hit with the beautiful soundtrack by Jeremy Soule, and at the time the scenery and the biomes seemed incredible. I know games have come a long way since then, but at the time it was still pretty breathtaking. Now, as you explore more of Skyrim and you begin experiencing the main story, as well as all the side content, factions, the mystery and the allure of the dragons and everything else, the world building really comes to life. The world building in Skyrim is one of the main reasons why I think it has had such incredible longevity and such a die-hard following all this time. All the pre-existing lore is reinforced and expanded on throughout the story and side content. So many of the characters and NPCs are well written and interesting, and the quests are just so dynamic that it really gives the feeling like the world is truly alive. There's so much to explore and so many opportunities to discover new things. For example, I really love all the Daedric quest lines, except for maybe one.
A new hand touches the beacon.
No. Wait.
Additionally, I think all the cities and towns feel like they have their own identity with their own issues and unique quest lines. The best example of this, I think, is a contrast between Whiterun or Solitude compared to a city like Markarth or Riften. In Whiterun and Solitude, the effects of the Civil War are felt immensely. You could tell the citizens and leaders in these cities are very involved in it, and the quests tend to revolve around those events. Whereas in Markarth, they have a completely different vibe. They're more concerned with the condition of the mining industry and forsworn conspiracies. Or with Riften, you can feel like a more grimy and nasty tone of corruption, especially with the Thieves Guild being rooted there. And then you can compare and contrast these bigger cities with the smaller towns like Riverwood. Although they don't have a grand nature like the others, they too have their own interesting lore and quests that you can take part in, which just goes to show how great the diversity of locations are in Skyrim. All of this really synergizes in a way that has your character reacting to the world, and not so much your world reacting to you. Now obviously, the Dragonborn plays a huge role in the fate of Skyrim and most of the quest lines, obviously, but my point still stands. Although I know that there are some Elder Scrolls fans that feel that Skyrim had regressed in a lot of ways in terms of RPG mechanics compared to Oblivion, which is true in some ways, but I feel like the rest of what Skyrim has to offer really makes some of those areas of quote-unquote regression seem minuscule. Yes, you don't have as much freedom in your build mechanics as you did in Oblivion, but I don't care anyway because nothing is better than Stealth Archer, and that is all you need. I feel like Skyrim has this false rep that the main story is mid or boring, and I honestly think that couldn't be further from the truth. The main questline is peak action adventure in my opinion. The journey that the Dragonborn goes on in pursuit of fulfilling his or her destiny is littered with incredible mysteries, characters, and factions. It truly feels like a grand expedition with unlimited potential. And even aside from the main quests, the faction questlines are also great. The Civil War, the Thieves Guild, the Dark Brotherhood, and the Companions all have unique stories and characters that I think anyone could get lost in. And if I had to pick a favorite, it would probably be the Thieves Guild. It just has a different type of aura around it, and it's probably the best in terms of storytelling that the game's factions have to offer. But the beautiful thing about Skyrim is that the content doesn't end there, because once you're done with the main quests and the side quests and the factions, you have 3 top tier DLCs that you can play through in Dawnguard, Hearthfire, and Dragonborn. Now, in my opinion, these 3 DLCs are all incredible. They all have a great story, great characters, great set pieces, great scores. Everything about them is just excellent in my opinion, and I know Hearthfire is kind of more like a mini DLC, but even the mini DLC of, building your own house, adopting children, is just great in my opinion. There's no downside, and quite honestly, if I had to choose Bethesda's best games in terms of DLC, Skyrim would probably be up there with Fallout 3. Fallout 3 is probably never going to be topped in terms of DLC, but hey, Skyrim made it pretty damn close in my opinion. Now, I just want to expand on a point I made earlier about well-written characters, because honestly, I think Skyrim's character writing is excellent. Skyrim easily has some of the most memorable characters in gaming. Ulfric Stormcloak, the Greybeards, Jarl Balgruuf, General Tullius, Kodlak Whitemane, Mercer Frey, and my all-time favorite Elder Scrolls character, the GOAT, Parthenax. I'm not joking when I say these characters really taught me a lot about the nuances of political conflict and war, and I just think in general Skyrim had a knack for its ability to impart wisdom on the player, especially if you were a younger kid like me at the time, whose knowledge of political conflicts was kind of limited to world wars and very one-sided accounts that were taught in school. The conflict between the Empire and the Stormcloaks does incredible at showcasing power struggles, and the fact that these conflicts, similar to real life, are never really black and white. Ulfric, for example, at first glance, depending on who you talk to in game, is a traitorous rebel who really just wants power for himself. But as you progress through the main Civil War quest line and speak to him and others, you can tell he genuinely believes in what he's doing and thinks it's right for the people of Skyrim. Conversely, with General Tullius, many people think he's an occupier meant to do the bidding of the Thalmor. But as said before, as you progress the questline, you can see the nuance. That what he wants is what's best for the Empire and for the people of Skyrim. And you, the player, are the one that has to decide which outcome is better for the people of Skyrim. Who are the Thalmor rooting for? Because at the end of the day, these are the real bad guys. Another thing I love about Skyrim is its ability to create discourse. Fans to this day still argue about what's best for Skyrim. The Stormcloaks may be unknowingly Thalmor puppets, but they directly oppose the Thalmor, whereas the Empire is working with the Thalmor. But a united Empire in Skyrim might be better to combat the Thalmor at a later time with more strength. Feel free to debate in the comments below. I'd love to see what you all think about that. Now, I mentioned before that my favorite character is Parthenax, and I think his writing is probably the thing that sticks with me the most out of any character in any Bethesda game. To me, he represents a sinner, and he directly relates to society as a whole when he says this line, and I'll play it here.
What is better, to be born good, or to overcome your evil nature through great effort?
What is better, to be born good or to overcome your evil nature through great effort? This right here was so deep to 14-year-old me, I literally sat there for just like 5 minutes straight. Parthenax represents a flawed person. He has killed thousands, if not millions, as dictated by his dragon nature. Yet he manages to overcome that nature and works every day in his desire to be better. As he mentions himself, he has such desires to go back to the ways of the dragons, but he knows it's not right. It really is a biblical teaching that is so completely lost in games nowadays. As humans, we are all flawed by nature, but what matters is your effort to overcome that. The Blades claim to be doing what's righteous, but often when you're claiming righteousness, you probably aren't that good of a person anyway and are just battling pride and ego and refusing to address your own shortcomings. And that is what the Blades are doing. And after all, they should be taking orders from the Dragonborn anyway, not the other way around. And if you ever sided with the Blades and decided to kill Parthenax, you are dumb as fuck. It's such a shame that the base game doesn't let you refuse and put Delphine and Esbern in their place, which leads to my next reason for why this game is the GOAT, and that is the modding, which pretty much gives you unlimited options to enhance your experience. For example, the Parthenax Dilemma mod, which does allow you to take a different route in the Parthenax quests, or even the many combat mods that are available, since the combat is probably Skyrim's weakest area in terms of game design, although vanilla combat still holds a special place in my heart. Bethesda's mod support in Skyrim is easily the best out of any of its games, and the community has absolutely done an incredible job at keeping Skyrim fun, modern, and alive. Now, I'm not naive. I know that without modding, Skyrim would have likely been dead a long time ago, but I think the fact that the game is set up so well and supported so intensely by Bethesda for modding is not really an argument against Skyrim, but actually an argument for it. The vast library of graphics mod, combat mods, physics mods, dismembering, magic mods, additional player homes, and all of the others essentially made Skyrim immune to fall off. I've put thousands of hours into Skyrim, and I'll probably put thousands more, and to be quite honest, I don't know if there will ever be another game that will completely immerse me in the way that Skyrim has, and that's okay. No matter what happens, if Elder Scrolls 6 is a flop, if Bethesda never makes another exceptional game again, at least I'll always have the greatest of all time. The Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim.